A quick note on fluid. So I personally found that I can't drink enough. And I'll be drinking and drinking and drinking and think, oh God, why is my pee still quite dark? So I recommend drinking to thirst and then checking the colour of your pee. It should be pale, straw colour, not too smelly. And if you're really stuck, then you can use the calculation of 35 mils per kilogram of body weight as a minimum. So that might be, if you weigh 100 kilograms, for example, roughly, that might look like 3.5 litres. So 35 mils times 100 times by 100. You might need more than that. Again, just check the colour of your pee. That's going to be the best indicator. I know it's a nightmare having to keep drinking and then keep peeing, and it's not ideal, but it's how things are at the moment. All fluids count, except alcohol. Caffeinated drinks do count towards your fluid intake. However, the evidence does point towards having 2 cups of caffeinated drinks a day, or 2 cups or less a day, to be safe. So caffeinated drinks include things like black tea, coffee, green tea, cola, energy drinks. And the NHS has some really nice guidance on the amount of caffeine in food and drinks, which I think I've linked to at the bottom as well. Other things that are good ways to get fluid in are even things like ice lollies and custard and fruit and jellies. They're ways of your body actually gets fluid from those things as well. Of course, it's not going to get everything it needs from food, but they do kind of add up, especially as we're coming into the summer months, or maybe you live in a hot country and, or maybe you're just craving ice lollies like I did for a while. I touched on alcohol. So alcohol is not recommended. The safest approach recommended by the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists is to not drink alcohol if you're pregnant. And although the risk of harm to your baby is low, if you've had small amounts of alcohol before becoming aware that you were pregnant, we don't have a safe level that we know is okay to drink when you're pregnant. So just, be aware. It can affect your baby's development and growth and the health of your baby, and potentially your child's long-term health. So if possible, try and stay away from alcohol. Protein, I've had questions before, and should I be having lots of protein to kind of grow this baby? And the optimal protein intake during pregnancy is actually unknown, and the guidelines suggest anywhere from anywhere from about 6 to 30 grams a day extra. So what does that mean? Well, 6 grams of protein is equivalent of like 1 egg. And it may be that you need a bit more towards the end of pregnancy. However, protein deficiency is very, very rare. So as long as you're eating some protein every day, a couple of your meals, I would say, if possible, in the form of things like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, beans, lentils, pulses, that kind of stuff, yogurts, milk, nuts, tofu, those are all sources of protein, and having a couple of sources of those every day in your diet is going to give you the things that you might need. Yes, vegetarians and vegan diets during pregnancy, I've linked to a resource in the bottom that you should be able to see that has there's quite good guidelines on the NHS website on just some nutrients to be aware of. If you are having vegan and vegetarian sources of protein, lentils, beans, pulses, the main thing is trying to just mix it up as much as possible to get all of the amino acids, the essential amino acids that your body might need. If you're concerned, then again, just being aware of what are the good sources of protein in a vegan and a vegetarian diet, and where can you be adding them into your day. And it might be that you can just get a big source, a couple of sources in one meal, or you might be able to spread it a little bit more evenly throughout the day. I think it's really important to just remember, if you are concerned, your baby gets preference for nutrients over you, and they're essentially like parasites inside of us. So even if you're not managing to eat much, or maybe you can only tolerate carbs, which I'm going to come on to, it's unlikely that your baby's going to suffer, as the nutrition that you get goes to baby first. And because they're so tiny, they don't need that much. And you also have lots of maternal stores that your baby's going to draw upon. So assuming that you have had a good balanced diet pre-conception, having a bit less protein, or maybe you're going really hard on the carbs at the moment, it's not going to cause any major issues unless you've come into pregnancy being on a very calorie controlled or restrictive diet. If you're concerned, then of course speak to a dietitian or a registered nutritionist for some support. Carbohydrates, they are an important component of the pregnancy diet, as well as a healthy diet in adult populations as well that aren't pregnant, and they should represent around 45 to 60% of the energy that you consume in a day. So the key thing here is, if you can, try and include a good source of carbohydrates at most of your meals and your snacks as well. So carbohydrates include things like bread, potatoes, pasta, breakfast cereals, rice, noodles, maize, millet, oats, yam, cornmeal, that kind of stuff. Snacks could look like things like oat-based cereal bars, or crackers, toast, cracker bread with cheese, or with Marmite or peanut butter or avocados, whatever your favorite toppings are, or yogurt and granola. Just some ideas for some snacks that contain carbohydrates. And for lots of people, I know that carbs seem to be the only thing that can help with nausea. More specifically, white carbs, white bread, biscuits, pasta, things like that. And because in our culture there's a lot of carb phobia, it's quite relentless. We can end up feeling a bit guilty about eating carbs, or ashamed of eating white bread and things like that, which is absolutely fine. It might make us think that we're harming our babies, but that's going to leave you in a bit of a tough position if the only thing you can stomach is toast. So one thing that you might be interested to know is that all white flour in the UK legally has to be fortified with calcium and iron and B vitamins. So that varies from country to country. Some flour in other countries is fortified with folic acid. I know the UK are fighting for that. But in different countries, there's different kind of levels of fortification. And they do that because they recognise that bread is a highly consumed food in the UK, and they see that there are certain potential deficiencies, and how can we kind of boost the population without them realising it. So yeah, white flour is still pretty nutritious. And as I said, baby gets preference for nutrients over you. So if you are a bit of a toast monster at the moment, then that's not a problem. Unless it's going on and on and on, and you're concerned about your dietary intake. Another thing is fats. I'm at 45 minutes, but I'm not going to go any more than an hour, by the way. So if you do need to go at 45 minutes, then you can catch up on the next bit at another time, because it's recorded. But fat, so there's no official recommendations for fat intake during pregnancy. And one thing that we do know is that omega-3s are quite important to ensure good growth of your baby's brain and nervous system. And fat, or like omega-3s, are typically found in things like oily fish. But we also know what comes in oily fish, and fish is mercury, which can be harmful in pregnancy. So it's kind of finding a balance, and the current recommendations are to aim for 2 portions of fish in a week, and a portion is kind of like what fits into like that finger size, like that, or a checkbook kind of size for anyone that has a checkbook these days. But it's recommended to aim for 2 portions of fish a week, one of which is oily. And good sources of oily fish that are also low in mercury include things like salmon, pollock, herring, sardines, cod, and mackerel. And not king mackerel. Apparently king mackerel's got lots and lots of mercury in it. So if you don't eat fish, or you don't like fish, or you've really gone off it during your pregnancy, there are other sources of omegas as well. So things like chia seeds, linseeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, rapeseed oil. They're not quite as well absorbed as fish, but they are still sources of omegas. And also omega-3 is found in some pregnancy multivitamins as well. And the main benefit of omegas is a component of the omega-3 called DHA, or docosahexaenoic acid. So the recommendations are to include around 200 to 300 milligrams of DHA a day. And you'll see that probably in your supplement, your pregnancy supplement. If you're taking one, 200 milligrams is kind of the standard addition to these supplements. So if you're taking any sort of omega-3s, just check the dosage is within that 200 to 300 milligrams of DHA, and make sure that if you're taking a separate omega supplement, that it doesn't contain any vitamin A or retinol, which can sometimes be added, and that can be harmful to the baby. Another thing that's important in pregnancy is fiber. So fiber, or dietary fiber, is a collective term for different plant substances that are resistant to digestion by our gut enzymes. So they form the bulk of our poo, essentially, and they help keep our digestive systems healthy. And you can find fiber in things like fruits and vegetables and legumes and nuts and seeds and whole grains. And they can be kind of heart health promoting. They can help with constipation or preventing constipation. And they can also potentially reduce risks of things like preeclampsia. So they're a pretty great food all round. If you can include them in your diet when you're feeling up to it. And ways in which you can do this included things like high fiber breakfast cereals, so Weetabix, shredded wheat, porridge oats, going for the granary bread if you can, if you like it. Potatoes with skins, or even vegetables, leaving the skins on them as long as you're giving them a good wash, can be a way to add more fiber into a diet. Adding things like beans and pulses and lentils to soups and stews and curries and salads as well. Having like fruit, fresh fruit, dried fruit, canned fruit, they're all absolutely fine to include in your diet. And things as snacks like oat cakes, peanut butter on oat cakes, vegetable sticks and dips and things like that.